I noticed that I haven't been flying my cruisers in over 2 or 3 months now, and of course that will change with this video because today I'll be flying the Cynabal and Stabber 2 again, and I believe I will start flying the RB3 as well. However, with the RB3 I'm still working on a build. Surprisingly, that little ship became very difficult to build, and well, when I do a RB video I'll be talking about that a lot more in detail. Now this is a face that I haven't seen in a very long time. I see that the Cynabal is as ugly as ever, although I have to admit I like how this ship looks. Now my Cynabal hasn't been changed much. I had plans to fly two Cynabals, one full DPS and the other one a armor tank, but I just haven't had the time to build a second one, so I'll be using the DPS Cynabal, and this is basically the build that I like to run on this ship, full DPS with a micro warp drive. As for the rigs, 3 can burst radiators, which do increase the DPS quite a bit, and ever since the change in the last balance patch, that has been the best rig setup for DPS. Now the tank on the ship is basically non-existent. The Cynabal can be both a armor or shield tank. However, I prefer an active armor tank for the Cynabal or passive shield tank with shield extenders. But overall, this Cynabal is mostly being used as a full-on DPS ship. Now, when I use an afterburner, it means that I will engage a Battleship, and the afterburner is very useful to maintain a 0 km orbit around a Battleship. So sometimes I do use that module instead of the micro drift, and instead of one gyro stabilizer, sometimes I like to use a large extender. However, I rarely go for the extender. Usually the damage control is more than enough, and you have a lot of shield with the extender. The Cynabal can surprisingly be very tanky, and overall a passive shield tank with the extender and with the damage control is actually a pretty solid build. And of course you can use the afterburner or micro warp drift with this setup. But in my case, I like to run this ship with triple gyro stabilizers because I already have the barrage implant on this ship, and I have 1.2 thousand VPS with this Cynabal. Of course, this is the cold DPS, the active DPS is much higher. Now, I used to have a tungsten nanocore on the Cynabal, but lately I haven't been using any nanocore for this ship. In all honesty, I don't really need to use a nanocore on this Cynabal. The DPS is already more than enough, and it does perform really well as it already is, and well, I think I will keep this Cynabal as cheap as possible, so that means I will not use any nanocore on this ship. Now, the Stabber 2 is a little bit different. The Stabber 2 has been buffed. All of the assault cruisers have been buffed in one of the recent balance patches. They have received a very nice bonus on shield or armor resistances. The Stabber 2 has received shield resistance, and this makes it a lot closer to the Vagabond. Now, I would also like to take a moment to talk about a potential, let's say, future manufacturing process where you could make the Vagabond, and I believe that the Stabber 2 or the Stabber fleet issue will be the ships that you have to use as material in order to produce a Vagabond, or perhaps you will be able to produce the Rifter 2 or other special ships like that. So I'm very excited for the future on this ship, because the Vagabond is one of my goals in this game as well, and when we do get that manufacturing system, I'll be talking about that a lot. Now, the build on the On the Stabber 2, it is a little bit changed. Now I have one large Nosferatu and one large shield booster. I built the ship to be a tank. It has already pretty solid DPS, so I just went and increased the tank and shield booster performance on this ship. And of course, one of the main traits for the Stabber 2 is its speed. This thing is ridiculously fast. A active tank and a speed tank combined. Now the DPS might not be as impressive as on the Cynabal, but the DPS is more than enough, and I built this ship to last for as long as possible. Of course, there is still room for improvement, and of course I could always improve the tank on this ship, but I wanted to keep the Stabber 2 cheap because in the future I expect to use this ship to produce the Vagabond, so I have to make sure that it's not too expensive to break apart when the time comes. Now the bonus on the damage control is very nice. 18 seconds of very high shield resistances, and I also have the sleep nanocore on this ship, which also serves as a secondary damage control. Now the sleep nanocore will increase your tank, will increase capacitor recharge, but it will reduce the DPS and it will reduce the repair on the armor repairs or on the shield booster. So it has a pretty big drawback, but in some cases it can be very useful. So far I haven't used the sleeper core to save my own skin. I didn't really need to use it. I had one super long fight where I did use the sleeper core like a couple times, and that's, I believe, one of the only ways how you'll ever use the sleeper nanocore in a long fight. That fight lasted about 50 minutes, so I used the nanocore bunch of times, and was one of the best fights that I've ever had in this game. Alright, well, that was the boring part of this video. I always like to explain the builds and how the ships progress through time. Well then, now it will be time to undock and blow up some ships. So let's warm up with the Cynabal. Now the first target is going to be a battleship. We have an Apocalypse. Now this Apocalypse is sitting at about 100 kilometers from the gate. I scouted with the Astro to find a perfect warp in, and I changed the build on the Cynabal to include one afterburner because I plan to orbit the Apocalypse at 0. I expect the Apocalypse to carry webs, so a 0-kilometer orbit is going to be very important in order to keep this ship alive. Now I landed a little bit far away. Not really sure how that happened, but I guess the Apocalypse did move, and it's not a big deal. I will still reach the orbit just fine, and I even rammed the Apocalypse by accident. That was definitely not planned. And now I maintain the 0-kilometer orbit. The Apocalypse is shooting at me, but the beam lasers just don't have enough tracking to hit a Cynabal. Now, despite the size of this monster, as you can see, the Cynabal is almost as long as the Apocalypse. The Cynabal has the smallest signature radius, and it's one of the most hard to hit cruisers, so I should be pretty safe. Now here I noticed the Apocalypse started to move, and they did try to align to the station, and I did something very stupid. I attempted to ram the Apocalypse and I failed. Thought that they will warp away, but I have 2 scramblers and 1 web, so even triple webbed I should be able to maintain a stable orbit around this Apocalypse. and even triple webbed, the beam lasers just don't have enough tracking to hit me. And of course, most importantly, I am orbiting around the apocalypse faster than the apocalypse is moving, so that way I will be safe from the lasers. So far, absolutely no damage taken from the apocalypse. The apocalypse did have an armor tank. They did use some armor plates. I believe they have like one armor repairer, or perhaps two of them. Not really sure what kind of build they have, but they definitely have an armor repairer and armor plates. We will find out that very soon. The apocalypse in very low hull, and the apocalypse has been destroyed. Well, decent loot. The beam lasers are always expensive, so that was a very nice catch. I took basically no damage from the apocalypse. The afterburner did a very nice job to keep me safe from any possible damage. If that was a mic warp drive, perhaps I would take some damage because of the signature radius increase that you get from using the mic warp drive. And now let me burn away here. Let's take a look at the wreck, at the kill. 1 billion, not bad. A decently sized kill. Dual plates, 1 armor repair, triple webs, very interesting. But beam lasers have no tracking, and once you start orbiting at 0, it's basically game over for the Battleship. Okay, well, let's jump in the Stabber 2, and our first target with the Stabber 2 will be a Gila. Now, initially I thought to take the Cynabal out for the Gila, but I just had that feeling that this Gila is ridiculously tanky. So, for a tanky Gila, I brought a tanky Stabber, and well, this ship is actually pretty good. It does perform really well against faction cruisers. I built this thing to last against basically anything that you can throw at it. Now, the first thing that I noticed here is that my autocannons basically do no damage to this cruiser. Now, the Stabber 2 has a very nice range on autocannons, and you can easily orbit around targets at 17-18 kilometers and do nearly full damage. Of course, if you want to have better accuracy, you will have to slow down the ship, but with my current skills, the optimal orbiting distance is about 17-18 kilometers, and this is where the ship is doing its best damage. Now, the reason why I'm not doing much damage on the Gila is not because of my tracking, not because of the range, but because this Gila is ridiculously tanky. And they also use 1 large shield booster, and based on the amount of damage that I'm doing on the Gila, I would say they have about roughly 88 to 92% resistance, so we are looking at a potentially heavily integrated Gila for tank, with using probably 2 adaptives, 1 reactive, 1 battery, and 1 large booster. Now, why do I guess that this Gila doesn't have any afterburn or any micro drive? Well, the Gila is slow. It doesn't seem to be moving that fast, it doesn't seem to be using any propulsion module, so I expect the build to involve a lot of adaptives, potentially a fast battery, and definitely a large shield booster. So overall we are talking about a very tanky cruiser, and we're probably looking at a 40-minute fight with this current tempo that we have. Now, I'm not going to budge. I don't plan to go anywhere. Either the Gila goes down or I go down trying to destroy the Gila. So that's how I usually fly the Stabber. it's cheap, so I can afford to have I can easily afford to do stunts like this with this ship. It's very cheap to replace, so if it goes down, it's not a big problem. So, still orbiting, still fighting with the Gila. So far, they don't seem to be interested in the stabber for some reason. They are 100% ignoring me, which is kind of funny. Now, the Gila seems to be using Nosferatus, so that automatically means that the other two modules might be a scrambler, might be a web, or perhaps they are using a full Nosferatu build. Now I will dive in a little bit closer to web the Gila and to see what kind of modules they have. The Vigilant has landed because everyone wants a piece of a very tanky Gila, and even two of our ships, even a DPS Vigilant has issues to go through the tank of that monster. We're looking at a very nice build, by the way.
We're under attack.
A Phantasm also joined. Okay, let's see if we have enough DPS to break the tank on this thing now. Still tanks. Well, okay, fair enough. Now I believe that my Nosferatu did do an impact on the Gila's tank, because it feels like the Gila has lost resistances. And I believe that they have panicked a little bit. They forgot to turn back on the adaptives, but now once the shield is gone, the armor is gone as well, and now a little bit of hull left, and the ridiculously tanky Gila has been destroyed. I have to say that was a very nice build on that Gila. Ridiculously tanky. It feels like it literally feels like they have used a build similar to the build that I showed on a Gila that I used to fly. And yes, well, I was dead on the build. I was dead on the build. Heavily integrated and a full-on tank build and full-on tank integrations. That's what I call a very, very nice build. Would be a lot more difficult to catch if they used one afterburner instead of one adaptive, but again, very nice work on building that Gila. Amazing tank. It took 3 of our ships to break the tank of that one cruiser, and they could probably tank even more if they did keep the adaptives running. Now the next target, we have one Cynabal. Cynabal quickly scrambled, quickly webbed. We have to be fast because this Cynabal has the Cyber X nanocore, and that nanocore is known to have a lot of stabs, so we have to be quick with shooting this ship down. Cynabal is into armor, now into hull. I used my damage control, and the Cynabal has been destroyed. This is how you deal with ships that have a lot of stabs. You quickly warp in, you quickly pin the target down, and you quickly destroy it before they warp out. I took some damage on the shield. They definitely had some very nice DPS. After all, a Cynabal is known to have very nice DPS, and they probably had the barrage implant based on the amount of damage that I took. 1.3 billion. A shield tank, nice. Triple Nosferatus. And yes, they had a Cyber X nanocore. Nanocore has a lot of stabs, so overall it was a very decent catch. Nice target. Okay, let's go to the next target. I think we have an Oracle. Yes, we have an Oracle, and they are sitting at 100 from the station. Did not seem like they were aligned, so Should be a pretty easy catch. I used an afterburner just in case if the Oracle decides to web me in order to maintain a 0 km orbit, but a micro drift is also more than enough. However, afterburners are just made for speed tanking. Oracle scrambled. I probably did not have to use the afterburner to approach or to orbit, but you know, just in case. Oracle now into hole. Let me take some range to improve the tracking. And the Oracle has been destroyed. Nice. Let's take a look. Let's take a look
We're
at
under
the wreck.
attack.
Some beam lasers, always nice. Beam lasers are very expensive. Very nice loot. And let's warp out. That was a very nice catch.
Active.
Let's warp out. Once the ship lands, I can show you the kill. Okay, let me align in space. I actually docked with the criminal timer a couple times by accident. 418 million. They had one web, but they did not use it. Overall, a solid kill. Alright, let's go to the next target. Orbit set at 25. Now this is the build where I use the tracking computer. The ship works really well with the tracking computer. We have one Drake. Okay, that should be the orbit, 66 kilometers.
Warp drive active.
I mean, that should be the warp-in. With a tracking computer you can easily orbit at 25 kilometers and you will do full damage. I believe the Vagabond, when the actual Vagabond comes into the game, that thing will be very fun to fly. I did build this ship to work like a Vagabond, so I'm flying it like one, and so far it does seem to be working really well. Now what do we have here? A armor tank Drake. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about this one. Might be a little bit on the cursed side. We're about to find out. Well, the armor on the Drake definitely not going to hold anything because, well, the Drake is just not a armor tank. It's a shield tank ship, but I guess players like to curse build their ship, and unfortunately that's the case with this Drake. But before I go to any conclusion, I first have to take a look at the kill. So let's save the comments for later. Perhaps I'm wrong, perhaps it is a shield tank. We will find out. Okay, let me approach and finish off the Drake with the barrage implant. Okay, Drake destroyed. Let's take a look at the wreck. I used a micro updrive to quickly close in the distance because there was no good warping on the Drake. Okay, let's warp out and let's
Warp
take a
drive
look
active.
at the kill. This thing is very fast with the micro updrive. This is the fastest cruiser in the game, actually faster than the Cynabal because of its low mass and because of the speed bonus that you get from the skills. Overall, the Stabber 2 is a very fun to fly ship. 181 million. Well, yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah, it's definitely not a great build. An armor tank and a shield tank. Well, it's actually worse than I expected. Okay, well, let's go to the next target. We have one Sunensis which is interesting because when I was tracking where they warped to
drive
a
active.
data site, so you know, could be a pretty expensive Sunensis. I have destroyed a lot of these ships that carried like the most expensive analyzers, which is very interesting because the Sunensis is actually a pretty solid exploration ship. If you don't have the Astra, or if you don't have any other exploration ship, then the Sunensis is actually a really solid choice. And let's quickly go and tackle this ship. Now this is the map where you get easily stuck on the structure there, so I definitely do not want to get stuck here. The Sunensis got stuck, so I am not going to approach that ship because, well, I can get stuck as well, and that's not a pleasant thing. Okay, Sunensis is now destroyed. Let's take a look at the wreck. Well, yeah, not what I expected, but okay, it's still a pretty solid catch. Let's warp out. And let's take a look at
Warp
kill
drive
once the
active.
ship warps and lands. 166 million, and well, a very interesting ultrap. If this Netis was using the more expensive analyzers and scanners, I would be making back now, but unfortunately they only used the Mark 7 modules, which is fine. They still do a pretty decent job for their price. Now the next target we have one Imicus Explorer. Now here I took my good old RB3 out. I did say that I'll fly this thing, and I did
Warp
say that
drive
building this thing was very difficult, so ignore the current modules because those modules are not the final product that I'll be making with this ship. Now I messed up a couple times here. The first mess up is warping uncloaked. I forgot to cloak because, well, I haven't been flying cover tops in a very long time, and yeah, I messed up. And second mistake was not checking out the warping. The Explorer was from a different area, and well, I was late, and they warped away and cleared the site. Next we have a Myrmidon, and I believe I will fail a second time here because, again, I
Warp
forgot
drive
to
active.
cloak. Because I forgot that I was flying a cover top ship. I haven't been flying a cover top ship in a very long time, and I plan to change that. And there is the Myrmidon. Again, I'm far away from it, and well, I noticed that I wasn't cloaked. I cloaked, but they definitely spotted me, so just fingers
Warp drive
crossed that
active.
they did not see anything suspicious. You know, there was no RB3 cloaking there. That's just, you know, that's just their imagination. No, I decloaked because I planned to land close to the Myrmidon and tackle it, but I just have that feeling that this Myrmidon already warped off. So yeah, probably going
Warp
to warp
drive
in
active.
and probably not going to find anything. So I cloaked again. 8.5 seconds is the reactivation delay or lock-on delay when I decloak. And well, just as I guessed, the Myrmidon was gone. So I failed there because I forgot to cloak. If I did cloak, I could easily find a good warp in and engage the Myrmidon. But it happens, it's fine. Always funny to show some fails as well. Now let's see what our next target is. We have a Prophecy. Let's warp at 100.
Warp drive active.
Now I will probably start using my alt for getting a good warping location on the target. However, that would no longer be solo PvP anymore, because using alt even if it's only like one player using alts, is still not solo PvP, it's multi-boxing. And yeah, well, actually I did not fail this one. The prophecy moved by the time I warped to the mission, and this is why I always tell players to always move when you are running missions. As you can see, maneuverability and actually orbiting around the mission did save this prophecy. If they did stay here, they would be tackled. But thankfully they were orbiting, and that saved their ship. So that was a smart play
Warp
from the
drive
prophecy.
active.
That's how you run encounters and storyline missions in LowSec. Now, of course, I have a couple of tricks that I use when I miss the target. I can leave the system and I can come back, warp at the warp in at 100 kilometers, or at the distance that they like to warp in, and well, we practically land on grid at the same time. It's a very nice little trick that you can do to catch the target that escapes the first time, of course. Next target, we have one prophecy command. Now, one big
drive
issue
active.
with running solo nowadays is ships that have a lot of stabs. So this prophecy, my friend told me that this prophecy has a lot of stabs, and they showed me a kill of the prophecy where they have triple warp co-optimizers and a lot of aura stabs. So when I landed, my initial goal was to scare the prophecy so that we can place a tackle ship, a tackle Statius with a lot of points, in order to catch this ship, because my Cynabal with only 8 points
drive
is
active.
not going to hold the prophecy. So in order to ensure that we get the kill, we have to play a little bit smart here. So the prophecy has been scared away, and we are trying to get the good warp in here, because the prophecy keeps changing the warping angle.
Fleet
Now,
approach.
we both have a Cynabal here. However, my friend will change into a Stratius very soon, because the prophecy decided to go and let's say they decided to be aligned to the station. And in order to combat something like that, you have to use a cloaky tackle. Preferably a Sister of Eve ship, Statius for example, or even bombers can do that. You need a ship that can instantly lock the target once you decloak. And of course, if we use the Cynabal here, if we warp with our Cynabals, then by the time we land, the prophecy can easily warp out, because it takes time to land, and by the time we land, they're already aligned. They only have to click warp and they are out. So warping with the current ships that we have is not an option. The prophecy will warp away. My friend did take a status, and now they are into the mission. They are approaching. I'm waiting for the warping command. And once the warping command is there, I'll just warp at 100, and then I will burn towards the prophecy. Now there is a lot of tricks, a lot of tactics, and a lot of different ways how we can approach this situation. It's always nice to practice, because sometimes the target will be very expensive, very juicy, like the Barghest that we killed, or multiple Barghest that we killed, and being quite skilled at this is going to help a lot when you have an actual very expensive target to catch. So always nice to practice, always nice to treat every target with maximum possible respect, and
Warp
treat
drive
every target
active.
very seriously, because you never know what kind of build the ship can have, and you don't know what type of skills the pilot has. So always approach with maximum seriousness. Now, I accidentally locked all my friends. That was the game acting up for some reason. Did not want to lock on the Stratios. Let's approach the Prophecy command. Now this Prophecy has very long range with the drones and they use target painters, so I have to hurry up if I want to get a piece of this Prophecy, because currently our Stratios is doing an amazing job, and unfortunately I stole the kill, and I feel a little bit bad because I stole the kill, but it happens. And let's warp out. That was a very nice tackle, excellent tackle actually, and overall very nice teamwork. Now let me land and then I can show you the kill. Let me align myself towards the station there just in case. 241 million rapid missiles and, well, a lot of stabs. And yes, that's a lot of stabs. This is why it's getting more difficult to actually hunt targets solo, because everything has a lot of stabs and you really need a lot of points in order to catch and hold the target. Now next target we have a Brutix. Now this Brutix is also listening to my advice, and this Brutix is also moving around, orbiting. I believe they have an afterburner or a micro warp drive, because they seem to be quite fast. They are shooting at about 40 kilometers. They have the long range railguns, and by the time I land they are already a little bit far away, so I will have to approach with the micro warp drive. They're also an armor tank, which is a very nice choice for the Brutix. Almost in point range, and I was 1 kilometer short to tackle the Brutix. But as you can see, the Brutix was moving, and a moving target is a very difficult target. A moving target is very difficult to catch. So nice work to the Brutix for actually running low-sec missions as low-sec missions should be run, with a smaller ship that's fast, that's moving, and well, it looks like the Brutix knew what they were doing, and of course they have an easy escape, which is fine. That's how it should be. Skill does reward, as you can see. Now we are preparing for the next target. Not really sure what's the next target. Haven't really paid much attention, but it's a cruiser. It's definitely a cruiser, or could be a battle cruiser. Let me just transfer the fleet commander to my friend for the fleet warp. Okay, now we are ready. And we are on our way. Now, I don't know what ship we are going to tackle, so we're about to find out very soon. Serpentis medium anomaly. Might actually be a bait. Usually if you see something in the anomalies, it's usually a bait. That's how things go nowadays. We have a prophecy. Okay, let's quickly tackle the prophecy. Okay, tackled. I will orbit at 18 kilometers. That's my optimal orbiting distance. Prophecy already into low armor. Well, it doesn't seem like this prophecy was a bait. They went down very quickly. Let's warp out and let's wait out the criminal timer.
Warp drive active.
Yeah, this prophecy went down a little bit too fast for my taste, which makes me a little bit worried. A missile guidance computer on a prophecy. Okay, well, Interesting. That's a very interesting weapon choice for a drone boat. You know, sometimes I really do feel bad when I see a bad build, because I really wish that I could just give the player a better build, and that's the reason why I make the fitting guides, because when I see a build like that, it really makes me feel really bad and really sad, because I know that the player could have so much more fun if they had an actual better build. And as we could see, a pretty good build actually holds really well and works really well. So
Warp
a
drive
good
active.
build makes or breaks a player's game experience. Next target we have one Omen Navy. Now this Omen was also in a Anomaly, so fingers crossed that this Omen is also a bait ship. Usually those cruisers are used as baits. They're very nice cruisers, and a very nice build is usually applied to those ships. Now I landed a little bit far away, so I hope that I have enough speed to get into the point range. Okay, pointed. We'll orbit at 19 kilometers. I have the tracking computer, so orbiting at this range is not a big issue. The Omen is now into hull, into armor. Looks like an armor tank. Okay, that's interesting.
We're under attack.
And the Omen has been destroyed. Let's take a look at the wreck.
We're under attack.
Okay, looted, and let's warp out. You can use the insta warp trick with the stabber.
Warp drive active.
Does work very nicely. 40 million. Yeah, this was a quite cheap Omen, but you never know. You never know what kind of build the target can use, and I will align myself towards the station there, just in case. Now, do you remember that apocalypse from the very beginning of the video? Well, the apocalypse is back. Now, I took my Cynabal out, and I did observe the apocalypse with my alt for a while. It looked like they changed the build. Now, I did not see any armor hardener effect, so I suspect that they changed their build into a lot of stabs. So in order to combat a lot of stabs, you need a lot of points. So we brought our angel ships. Here we have one big angel ship, one very big angel ship, and well, there is my good old Cynabal. But overall, both ships have roughly the
Warp
same
drive
warp speed,
active.
so it's not really a big problem. And well, we are going. Looks like the apocalypse has been tackled by our Stratius, and the Stratius is maintaining a 0 kilometer orbit with the afterburner, with quad points, with quad scramblers. Both of the angel ships have landed. I applied my own scramblers, barrage on, will orbit at 0, just the way I did for the first time. And the apocalypse got destroyed fairly quickly. Okay, let's warp out and we will take a look at the kill.
Warp drive
Did the
active.
apocalypse change into a lot of stabs? Well, we're about to find out. My feeling says yes, they did, but you know, I could be wrong. We're about to find out. Let me align myself towards the station. Afterburner on. 1.1 billion, and yes, they picked a lot of staffs. They picked a lot of staffs. Well then, good decision that we brought the tackle status and that we brought a lot of points with us. Alright, well, that was a very nice, good old cruiser roam. Oh man, I can tell you, I had so much fun with my cruisers. I was a cruiser pilot from the start, and I will be a cruiser pilot. I don't know. I guess permanently, because I just like to fly cruisers. So yeah, really hope that we get the new ships. I'm definitely going to be flying the Vagabond when that thing comes out, and I have a good feeling that it will. We just have to pay a close eye on the release schedule and on the future updates. So with that being said, hope that you enjoyed. Stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.